Hello friends, thanks again for joining Rupert Cooks. I'm so excited to show you this next recipe because this is probably the easiest thing I make. 4 to 6 ingredients, under a half-hour cook time, no special equipment, no special prep or anything, but yet every single time I've ever served this to somebody, they've always been like, wow, that is really great for something so simple. It's always a winner every time I've tried it out. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So let's get to it. Okay, so we are going to start off with 2 bunches of scallions, which I realize is not the most precise measurement in the world, since every grocery store seems to be different these days. One thing that's nice is if you can get these, reasonably sized scallions, like something 3/8 to half an inch diameter, not these teeny tiny 1/4 inch little scallion sprouts that I've started seeing showing up. Try and get something that's like a reasonably good size here. And I define the scallion as having sort of 2 parts. There's the white part, which is the stuff near the root, and then the green part up near the top. And we're going to need to separate these because they cook differently. So we're going to cut into 2-inch lengths and separate out the white from the green here. So that's like one. Really, you just get about maybe, I don't know, two cuts. I don't know. Let's go through. I'm just going to call that's the white part, and here's the green part. And we're trying to keep these arranged because we're going to need to julienne them. So here's the white part of our scallions. And the way we're going to julienne them is keeping these in this sort of cord of wood state. And just come along here and slice lengthwise, which is a bit easier said than done sometimes with these white part of the scallion. But it doesn't have to be anything too precise. Just do the best you can. As you get towards the more green part of the scallion, it's actually a little bit easier because they're not quite as firm and scooting around on you. I just find the whiter parts are quite a bit more firm and sort of just fly out from under the knife. You can see this is a lot easier here. But the reason why we're doing this is because we're going to cook these a little bit longer than you might be used to cooking scallions. And, oops, that was whites. We were calling that whites. We're going to cook these a little bit longer than you're used to cooking scallions. And the reason for that is we're going to want to really infuse our cooking oil with the scallions' taste. That's what this whole dish relies upon, is that heavy onion taste. And that's why we're taking the extra time to slice this up nicely. And believe it or not, that is actually the hardest part of this entire recipe, is the scallion julienning. Not that julienning is ever really all that easy. I always find it kind of a chore. But at any rate, we've got that done. That's the roughest part out of the way, believe it or not. Next, we need to boil some water for our noodles. And the kind of noodles you should use are, I really like this brand, the Rose brand gourmet Chinese noodles. I don't really know if they're considered gourmet, but I like them. I find you can get these in pretty much every Asian grocery store I go to. I've gotten them on the East Coast. I've gotten them on the West Coast. There's some sort of standard noodle. You could use other noodles. You could use, Japanese noodles. What you don't want is like a super fine noodle or a super thick noodle, and you don't want rice sticks. This is about the size of thin spaghetti. You can see here. I think you could even maybe use spaghetti. I don't know that I would do that. It's not going to have quite the same taste to it. But these noodles work great. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Any of these sort of Asian white noodles. I wouldn't get buckwheat or anything like that. I guess you could try it, see if you like it. But What we're going to do is boil some water and throw in 10 ounces of these noodles and get those going. So we have our 10 ounces of noodles, a good handful, and we are just going to put them right into the pot. Some rapidly boiling water. You can see how quickly these are going down in there. And once it reaches a full boil again, we are going to throw in the surprising water, which is just a glass of cold water, about a cup or so. And what that does is that's going to firm up the noodles a bit and give them kind of a more al dente taste than just, cooking them a short amount of time. And yeah, now we're at a rolling boil again, and just throw in a cup of water and proceed as usual. Wait for them to get up to a boil. These noodles take maybe 7 to 8 minutes, something like that in there. And you can see here how these noodles are so flexible. They just sort of stir themselves in the pot. This is like a huge difference from how spaghetti would react or anything. But I find it kind of mesmerizing how they do this. It's pretty cool. Look at that. It's almost like Dave Bowman going through the monolith. Ooh. So we've got about a third of a cup of oil heating up in our pan. We're going to fry our scallion whites first because remember, they take a little bit longer. So in they go. And we're going to be cooking these for a little bit longer than you would think because we're trying to get a nice brown color on them. And what we're going to do is cook our scallion whites for, I don't know, around 5 minutes or so. 6 minutes, whatever it takes to get them to a golden color. And then we're going to add in half of our scallion greens and cook those as well because those take much less time to cook. The reason why we're cooking in so much oil is we want the scallions to release a lot of that onion flavor into the oil, which we're then going to save and cook our pork in that. Okay, and you can see our scallions have browned up nicely. That was about 4 minutes. So now we're going to add half of the greens. Not all of the greens, just half of them. My heat's getting a little away from me, so lower it down a little bit. And we're going to go, another 4 minutes or so. Get these greens all cooked in here. Okay, and that's been about 4 minutes. That's enough. And you can see how the oil in the pan has really turned green and picked up a lot of that scallion essence. So what we are going to do is remove these scallions with a slotted spoon and proceed. Okay, so we've fried up our scallions. We've got our oil left in the pan from that. And now we are going to start frying our pork. 10 ounces of ground pork. What we are doing here is we are not simply browning the pork. We are taking it a little bit beyond that. So this is probably going to take, again, 10 minutes or so. And we've been going for about 2 or 3 minutes and our pork is browned. But this is very important. This is one of the cooking techniques besides the getting the essence of the scallion into the oil. This is sort of the second part of it is we are not browning this pork. We are trying to cook this a little bit past brown so it gets to that crispy stage. And what that requires is 2 things. A little bit of time, but it also requires not stirring it all the time. You have to let it sort of get crunchy on the bottom, then stir it to flip it, and all of that sort of thing. So don't sit there and stir it all the time. If I stir it occasionally, that definitely means occasionally. Okay, you can see how that is now quite a bit past where most would consider normal browning, and it's got this sort of great color and crunchy texture to it. Now that our pork is all cooked, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1/3 of a cup of soy sauce. I'll put our heat down to low. And our fried scallions. And we are going to need a half a teaspoon of MSG. This is optional. I know some people have a big objection to MSG. I don't. MSG heightens the umami taste, and that is what this dish is all about. So put it in if you want, don't if you don't want to. And now we're going to throw in our noodles. Look. And you want to sort of give this a toss, get it all mixed in there, which is with noodles often sometimes easier said than done. And here we are all served up. You can see this makes a really beautiful and very simple meal. That's great for a lunch or even a dinner. So that about wraps up this episode. You can see that this was not at all about any fancy ingredients or any long prep or anything like that. This is strictly about technique. And that is the only thing that affects this dish. The two things is having the patience to really cook those scallion onions and use enough oil that you have enough in there to keep going and really extract the green onion taste into it. And then the second technique is going past what you're used to in regularly browning pork. If you just do a light brown on the pork, this is going to taste awful. You want that pork to be a little bit crunchy. And to do that requires patience. Not that long. It's like 7 to 10 minutes of cooking the pork. I don't know, maybe a total of 12 minutes on the scallions with the whites and green parts. But it's about having that patience and really trying to get that crunchiness on the pork. If you do those two things, you'll be amazed at how big a difference those two simple steps make in the way the dish tastes. I think the only thing difficult would possibly be getting the Chinese noodles, but I think every grocery store in the country sells them now. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. That really helps a lot and sends a small chill up my spine every time I see one of you subscribes. So, thank you again, and I will see you on the next one.